Alison Coubrough-Argentieri, our interim assistant superintendent for student support services, who is on loan from the high school this year. Welcome to Chris Gosselin, our director of instructional technology and innovation, and to Peter J Giannacopoulos, who is a sophomore at Needham High School. All of you have been involved in the School Wellness Advisory Committee this year, and we're here to check in a little bit about social media and cell phones in the Needham Public Schools. So maybe, first of all, Allie, if I can you share with us briefly, why did we decide to have this conversation about social media, cell phone use in the Needham Public Schools?
Yes, so we are required by Mass General Law to establish a School Wellness Advisory Committee that looks at topics of student health and wellness. And this year we decided to focus on the issue of social media and phones in schools and how it's impacting our students. We took a broad approach and did some local and national research. We went and visited schools. We talked to other school leaders or district leaders who have implemented different types of policies and practices. We had guest speakers come in and tapped into some of the local experts in the area around social media and the impact on youth and teens. And we conducted some of our own community-based data. We conducted surveys of our students, our staff, our families, and looked at some of our own Metro West adolescent health data as well about what students have reported over the years in terms of their social media use, how it's impacting them, and how it can or may correlate to mental health.
And I think also there has been some evidence or suggestions from high school staff in particular that students have been distracted in class, and that all of this is coming together. The prevalence of social media, cell phones, distraction, to say where are we and what do we need to do about it. Peter, how did you get involved, or how were you voluntold to be involved in this discussion around cell phones and social media?
Last year, Mr. Seacott asked me to join the committee. He thought I'd be a valid candidate to join.
Okay, and so maybe just briefly, what has your experience been? Because the committee's met several times this year. What have you learned, or what's your perspective on what's been discussed?
I found that last year was a very big distraction. There wasn't really any structure with the laws regarding cell phones.
At the high school?
At the high school, yes. Okay. And this year's just been much better, just in terms of productivity and how we are staying focused in school.
All right, so this committee started in the fall, but also starting in the fall was a new rule, if you will, that students will deposit their phones in the phone hotel, a phone holder when you walk in. And that's different. You've had a different experience with that this year than last year. Describe some of the differences.
Last year, people would just openly be on their phones in front of the teachers. But at the start of this year, I wasn't expecting the phone holders. But that first day was like really, really tough because no one wanted it. Everyone wanted to be on their phones, but slowly it started to grow on everyone.
And is your experience that you are less distracted, the same from what was happening before?
I'm less distracted, definitely.
The outcome of the committee work really is encapsulated by 3 buckets, like you said. That's school and district policy and procedures around cell phone use, community norms, and then our efforts around instruction, such as digital literacy and digital wellness.
We don't give phones to students. They walk into school with phones. And there's been discussion out there. There's even been parents who are saying, geez, do they need their phones so early? Can we wait? What are we going to try to do with community norms around phones?
Yes, so the suggestion that is coming out of the School Wellness Advisory Committee is that the community continues this conversation that the school has started this year, that's already begun in some pockets in the community as well, to try to come to some agreement based on the values of the community and based on, the demographics and the makeup of the community and what makes sense for this town and for our students in this community. There are some suggestions that we'll put forward as the School Wellness Advisory Committee to get started, but some of the big topics are, at what age does Needham believe it's appropriate to give children or youth internet-connected devices, a smartphone, essentially. Some feel that some communities have said wait until 8. Some have
Wait
said
until eighth
ninth
grade.
Yeah, wait until
Okay.
8th grade, or some have said even 9th grade. And there's another piece of community norms around then when is the appropriate age and time for access to social media. And most of the experts are saying 16 years old.
The whole thing is a huge conversation nationwide, and folks have read Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation, and we're trying to balance this device that certainly at the high school can be a useful device for students, but also with the distraction and maybe some of the harms of social media. Chris, in the curriculum, in instructional technology, what are some things in that area that we might want to try to introduce? I mean, just taking phones away doesn't really solve a problem for students who still need to learn how to use a device.
Right. I mean, look at the world we live in now is there's technology everywhere. Phones are a primary medium for adults and teenagers, and now more than ever kids, to access the internet and access different innovative technologies that enhance their lives every day. So we're fully aware of the impact of technology on kids, and we work really hard at Needham to ensure that we're providing learning opportunities for students about appropriate habits, how to use different technologies, but also, most importantly, how to creatively express their learning in really, really cool ways. In regards to the work on the Student Wellness Advisory Committee, what we've identified is that we can do a better job when we look at our K-12 continuum of teaching students these skills, right? Again, we're very fortunate to have the staff that we do working in each of our schools, our building-based technology integration specialists and librarians who are partnering with teachers every day to help students learn these skills. What we hope to do is take a closer look at where the gaps are in our instruction, and then identify, for example, one might be in 9th grade, right? When a student comes to 9th grade, what are the concerted efforts that are taking place to directly instruct our students about the benefits of using social media or phone use, but also, of course, the dangers and what they should be aware of.
In an intelligent, thoughtful,
Yep.
mature way to use the device.
Yeah.
So the School Wellness Advisory Committee has recommended, and we hope to insert this in our student handbooks for the new school year, that K through 8 cell phones will not be allowed in the classroom or in school. That they have to be turned off and put away in backpacks or lockers, but they should not be out. At the high school, and Peter, you talked a little bit about this, before, where there was a lot of teacher discretion, the proposed policy is that during instructional time, when students are in classroom, that their phones have to be off and in a phone holder, but that they may access their phones, for example, at lunchtime. That's your understanding of what some of the conclusions were. And how do you think that's going to work out for the high school, as we've kind of had some practice this year, but moving forward into next year?
I feel like students should be allowed to have it during lunch and maybe during X block, because that first class is an hour and 20 minutes, and students want to be on their phones anyways, whether they're on it during X block or that class after. They're going to figure out a way. And if students want to take charge of their learning and sign up for a teacher's X block, they can do that. But the students that don't want to, I feel like they should be able to be on their phones as a break.
Yep. And you and I probably differ on that perspective, but that's why this has been an ongoing conversation. I mean, from where I sit, instructional time, that's when students should be focused on either, even if it's downtime, talking to a friend, or focused on their studies. I think the phone can be away. There are plenty of other hours in the day. And yet I know we've had a really thoughtful conversation around this. And I think you have participated in a very mature way to really share the student's voice about what's going to be most impactful and what's going to work really practically for Needham High School. There is some legislation that we learned that's out there that talks about banning phones from bell to bell in its entirety. And I know we visited a couple of places where they do that, and they're not as successful locking them in pouches. I think it's a work in progress for us. I think we have to get into next year where we have some very clear rules about cell phone use and see how it goes. If it goes well, if we feel that students are less distracted, then I think perhaps the policy we recommend to the school committee continue. If we find that there continue to be problems, we may have to come back together and say this isn't working out the way we thought, and maybe we have to think about a more stringent policy around use. But for now, what I appreciate, Allie and Chris and Peter, is that you, and I neglected to mention, there are about a dozen other folks, parents and other students and teachers and administrators and school committee members who worked together and concluded that we want to think about community norms. We want to think about how we can use the curriculum to help students. And we also want to make sure that our school policies are consistent and consistently enforced so that students can have a distraction-free learning environment while they're in school. And overall, that's the goal. All right, Allie and Chris and Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.